This series exists to answer one question: is this actually worth the install? All right, this time we're talking about Brews and Bastards, a game that I found on Gamepass. I installed it for two reasons. The first is that the title is ridiculous and suggests a level of self-awareness, and second was the time to beat. 3 to 5 hours, that matters more to me than the genre reviews or the hype around the game. Not that there was a ton of hype around the game, but when you don't have unlimited time to game, short games aren't a compromise. They're often the point. So I took the risk. Once the gameplay clicks, the gameplay loop works. This is what works about the game. You're building a character, stacking upgrades, moving fast, deleting enemies efficiently. That dopamine drip is steady and intentional. You feel it most clearly once your build starts coming together, when your character finally feels powerful instead of fragile. At that point, the game becomes focused and confident. You stop reacting and start planning. You move with purpose. You clear rooms faster. Progress feels earned instead of accidental. The pacing also deserves some credit. This is a short game that knows it's short. There are 4 bosses. It doesn't pad itself with filler systems or unnecessary narrative weight. It lets you play, upgrade, fail, restart, and move on. Beating the final boss was genuinely satisfying, not because it was emotional or dramatic, but because it felt like a clean endpoint. The game asked me to do something, and I did it. I also found myself thinking about the game after I finished playing it, not obsessively, just like enough to go, yeah, I want to play this when I get home. The biggest problem with Brews and Bastards is the controls, specifically aiming with the right joystick on the controller. Early on, it feels awkward. It feels awkward to the point of being borderline unplayable. Directional control during combat, dashing, and jumping puzzles is harder than it should be, and the game does a poor job of easing you into that reality. It was kind of a poor design choice, in my opinion. This feels like a PC first game that was adapted to console and not really designed around it. There's also an onboarding issue. The game expects you to kind of understand that you're building towards something, that upgrades and synergies matter. But for me, I didn't do the tutorials, so I wasn't really paying attention. Some of that is on me, but part of it is respecting players' time and making the core loop clearly legible. There are lots of barrels that get coins. The first time I played through it, I didn't really collect any of those, and that's my mistake. The music is fitting, can wear you thin. Heavy rock works for the tone, but when you die repeatedly in the same area, it can stop really grinding on you and be really grating. None of this breaks the game, but it does add a little bit to push back on you. Here's the important part. If Brews and Bastards were 8 to 10 hours long, I would have not finished it. Not angrily or dramatic, I just would have stopped playing. The frenetic pace, constant intensity, and control friction would have worn me down. The game doesn't have enough variety to justify that length, but because it's a 4-hour experience, that changes everything. The friction is tolerable. The late game power spikes arrive before my patience runs out. The repetition feels intentional instead of exhausting. In other words, the game works because it ends when it should. That's not faint praise. That's good design, especially with adults, for adults with limited time. Who is this game for? If you like indie action games with aggressive pacing, enjoy experimenting with builds and efficiency, you don't need a strong story to stay engaged, and you're comfortable pushing through a rough kind of opening hour of the experience, it might be for you. It's especially well suited for Game Pass, where taking a 3-hour risk doesn't feel expensive or wasteful. If you're looking for atmosphere, narrative depth, or precision controls on console, this probably isn't your game. For me, Brews and Bastards was worth the install, not because it's flawless or elegant or memorable in a long-term way, but because it respected my time by not overstaying its welcome. I finished it, I was glad I did, and I don't feel any need to go back right now. That's a clean ending, and sometimes that's exactly enough.
Buy me a drink and I'll tell you a tale of the bastards that stole all of our ale. No one has respect for stories anymore.